Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of my travel diary series in Japan. So this is actually the last day of our little road trip portion of this trip in Japan. So not the final day of the series, but just the final day of this little road trip portion. So in the last episode, we left off after having spent a night in Kurashiki in the Okayama prefecture. And as I mentioned in the previous video, we spent the night at the Royal Park Hotel in Kurashiki. So we ended up starting this day pretty early again, and we started by heading down to enjoy a buffet breakfast that the hotel had. The buffet breakfast here at the Royal Park Hotel was so good. All the food was so fresh and there was more than enough for everybody. This here is some of the food that we ate for breakfast. I say some because we did end up going back for seconds and thirds. Let's just say that we made the most of the buffet breakfast. After breakfast, we headed out to the streets of Kurashiki towards our first activity for the day. I personally really enjoyed walking around the streets of Kurashiki. Like many places in Japan, many of the stores don't open very early in the morning. Although it really feels almost like you're taking a step back in time with the traditional Japanese architecture of the buildings and the streets. It really feels like a completely different era. With how nice and clean all of the streets are here in Kurashiki, I'm actually surprised that it wasn't more popular. Kurashiki is very well known for their textiles industry, renowned for their cotton production. In fact, Kurashiki was the birthplace of domestic denim jeans in Japan. Aside from that though, the town itself is absolutely beautiful, especially this area. And what better way to experience such a beautiful location than a small scenic boat tour. Now, to go on one of these boat tours, you do have to get up pretty early to book it. They booked out within just a few hours in the morning, so you really have to get in early. Although they are super cheap, so if you're ever planning a trip to Kurashiki, I highly recommend doing some research into it, because it is well and truly worth it. The boat tours themselves are in Japanese, so you may not understand a lot of the history that they talk about with Kurashiki, but they're still well worth the price. I should also mention that we booked the boat tour at the Kurashiki Information Center. I'll leave a link in the description below on the map location for the Kurashiki Information Center for those who might be interested.
空くんとゆめちゃん、空くんとゆめちゃん。
卵を温めてる時に皮が入ってくるんですね。本当にね、めっちゃくちゃ怒る。あ、フラッペ。で、ここの白鳥団にはね、白菜与えてます。ね、あと、かぶっていただいてる傘も船の上で回収しますから、はい、お帰りなさい。お帰りなさい。
After the boat tour, we had a little bit of a walk around the streets of Kurashiki and had a bit of a look around the stores as well, because we definitely couldn't come here without at least having a little bit of a look at the denim products that they have. Coming from Australia, I was actually quite surprised when looking around at the stores in Kurashiki because denim in Australia is actually quite expensive, but here it was definitely very cheap, which is probably pretty obvious because it is produced here. So understandably, the products were very good quality, so if you're a fan of denim, I highly recommend coming and checking it out. I really wish that we could have spent more time in Kurashiki, but we had a very long drive ahead of us and one more big location to see along the way. After we left Kurashiki, we started to drive towards the Hyogo prefecture. We did make one stop along the way at this really small Okonomiyaki store called Mi-chan. Mi-chan's is a very small Okonomiyaki store, as I mentioned. It only seats about 10 people, although the meals are extremely cheap and they are really big as well. Mi-chan is this elderly woman who's been making Okonomiyaki for years. Decades, in fact. I don't remember exactly how old she was, but it was definitely very surprising to see her working away so energetically at her age. After lunch, we continued our drive on to the Hyogo prefecture to Himeji, which brings me to the next main activity for this day of our trip, visiting Himeji Castle in Himeji in the Hyogo prefecture. On the way up to Himeji Castle, we did see these really cute dogs posing for a photo. Himeji Castle is considered Japan's most spectacular castle for its impossible size and beauty. It was actually one of the first registered World Heritage sites in Japan and is obviously one of Japan's national treasures. So, even though Himeji Castle is one of the most visited castles in all of Japan, it definitely didn't feel like it was anywhere near as busy as some of the other ones that I've been to. Which could be because it is such a large castle that it just didn't feel as crowded. Himeji Castle is made up of a basement and 6 floors. And there is a bit of a guiding path that will walk you through all levels of the castle.
This is the basement here.
So I did film a lot of the inside of the castle as well as the views from the top, so I think I might just let this play out and I hope you really enjoy it. there is also a zoo just next door to Himeji Castle, so if you have more time, maybe it'd be good to check that out as well. We unfortunately didn't because we do have quite a long drive ahead of us to Fukui. Although on the way out, I don't know why I find this so amazing, but these door hinges on these castle gates are just absolutely massive. The streets surrounding Himeji Castle are also quite aesthetically pleasing, so it was a really nice walk. But with that, we headed back to the car to make our way to Fukui. We ended up stopping off at this highway rest stop in Fukui once we arrived, mainly to grab a quick dinner because it was starting to get pretty late at this point. Now, I've mentioned it many times by this point just how much I really like these small rest areas, and for dinner I got this tamago sauce katsudon because I honestly can't help myself whenever this is on the menu. They are just so good. After dinner, we ended up getting back in the car and finishing the drive to my wife's parents' place. We did end up spending the next day or two of our trip pretty much just relaxing with not much filming going on. So because of that, the next episode of my travel diary series will be after that. Anyways, let me know your thoughts and opinions on the places that we went to on this day of our trip. I'd really like to know. Anyways, I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.